You stopped reaching out. They stopped reaching out. And now the silence is eating you alive because you're wondering if they even noticed, if they care, or if this is exactly what they wanted all along. Here's what nobody tells you about that moment when both you and your avoidant partner go completely silent. The situation doesn't end. It begins a deep, revealing emotional process that exposes the truth beneath everything. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what's actually happening in their head during this silence, why it hits them differently as time passes, and most importantly, how this silence becomes the thing that either wakes them up or confirms they were never going to show up. Because what happens next isn't about who contacts whom first. It's about who grows, and I'm going to show you exactly how to tell the difference. Right now, in this silence, your avoidant partner is probably feeling something you're not expecting. Relief. When contact stops from both sides, the avoidant nervous system interprets this as safety. All that pressure they were feeling, the expectation to respond, to show up emotionally, it just evaporated. Studies on attachment theory show that avoidants have what psychologists call a deactivating strategy. When relationships feel too close or demanding, their nervous system sends signals that mimic danger. So when you stop reaching out, their brain finally gets to exhale. But here's what makes this different from all the other times. They're used to feeling safe because you always reached out. It let them avoid vulnerability while still feeling desired. They had control. They knew you'd be there. But when you stop contacting them too, that sense of control starts to crack. And this is where the silence stops being comfortable for them. Because relief doesn't last forever. What comes next is something they weren't prepared for. And it's going to reveal everything about whether this person is capable of real connection or just comfortable with the idea of you. As days pass, that relief turns into something else. Curiosity, then confusion, then eventually fear. They start wondering why you're not chasing anymore. The silence that used to feel like freedom starts to feel like abandonment, and their brain begins asking questions it never had to ask before. Did they really move on? Why aren't they fighting for this? What if I've actually lost them this time? If this is already making sense and you're seeing your situation differently, hit the like button so I know this is landing. It helps me know what's actually helping you. This is when you'll start seeing the subtle tests. They'll view your stories, like old posts, send small check-in signals that feel casual but aren't. Hey, how have you been? Or, this reminded me of you. These aren't genuine attempts at reconnection. They're breadcrumbs to see if you're still available, if the door is still open, if they still have access to you without having to actually be vulnerable. And here's what you need to understand. These tests aren't about missing you. They're about regaining control. They're checking if their emotional safety net is still there. Because without your pursuit, they're confronted with something terrifying for an avoidant: the fear of being forgotten. But while they're cycling through this confusion and fear, something completely different is happening to you. And this is the part that actually determines how this whole thing ends. At first, the silence hurts. You're in pain. You're replaying everything. You're wondering if you made a mistake by not reaching out. Your anxious attachment is screaming at you to fix it, to make contact, to keep the connection alive. But then something shifts. Without the constant effort of keeping the connection alive, you regain emotional energy. You start to breathe again. The silence that once hurt starts to feel like protection, like peace. You begin reclaiming your self-worth. You start seeing the relationship clearly, how much effort you were giving, how little you received back, how you were managing their emotions while ignoring your own. And slowly, the silence becomes its own form of closure. This is where real detachment happens, not the kind where you're secretly hoping they'll notice and come back, but the kind where you genuinely stop needing them to choose you because you've already chosen yourself. And here's what's powerful about this. While you're healing and growing, they're feeling the emotional consequences of their defenses. Loneliness, regret, nostalgia, a fear of being forgotten. They may replay memories and quietly long for the connection, but they feel too guarded to reach out directly. Because reaching out would mean admitting they need you. And for an avoidant, that feels like losing themselves. Eventually, many avoidants do return. A small text, a casual comment, a subtle re-entry. Not for small talk, but to see if the door is still open. They're testing whether you're still the same person who used to chase them. But here's what separates this time from all the others. By now, you're no longer hooked by their patterns. Their distance doesn't feel mysterious anymore. It feels predictable. You can see it for exactly what it is: a defense mechanism, a fear of intimacy disguised as independence. And this is where you have to make a choice, not based on hope or potential or who they could become, but based on who they're showing you they are right now. When an avoidant who's doing the inner work reaches out after silence, there's accountability. They acknowledge the distance. They express what they've been thinking about. They don't have all the answers, but they show you they're doing the work. They're capable of moving toward you, even when it's uncomfortable. But if they reach out with breadcrumbs, with casual "hey" messages that lead nowhere, with surface-level conversations that avoid any real depth, that's your answer. What they're showing you is this: I can miss you, I can think about you, but I'm not willing to do the uncomfortable work of actually showing up. And no amount of silence or space or waiting is going to change that. Because this isn't about tactics, it's about capacity. Your real power emerges when you stop reaching out not to manipulate them, but because you've healed. Your silence signals real emotional independence, and that's what an avoidant feels most intensely. For some avoidants, this becomes a wake-up call that starts their healing. They realize what they lost. They start doing the inner work. They learn that intimacy doesn't mean losing themselves. For others, they escape back into distractions, new relationships, work, hobbies, anything to avoid feeling what the silence is trying to show them. And that's not your failure. That's their choice. Either way, silence becomes the mirror that reveals both your truth and theirs. So here's where you are right now. You're in the silence. And the question isn't whether they'll reach out. The question is, who are you becoming in this silence? Are you using it to heal, to set real boundaries, to rebuild your sense of self-worth? Or are you sitting in it, waiting for them to validate you by coming back? Because in the end, what matters isn't who contacts whom, it's who grows. For you, the silence can become self-worth and emotional freedom. For them, it becomes a confrontation with fear and old wounds. Silence doesn't destroy the connection. It simply shows whether it was strong enough without chasing. And if it wasn't, then what you're losing isn't love. It's the exhausting job of keeping someone interested in choosing you. So what happens next when both of you stop contacting each other? You get to find out who you are without them. And that's the most powerful thing that could happen. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.